Welcome back to Fast Money. It's like a scene from the Alfred Hitchcock horror film Psycho. The crypto carnage rages on, and it has been an utter bloodbath since the recent highs hit in early May. Bitcoin Cash, Ripple, Litecoin, Ethereum, and Bitcoin getting completely slaughtered. So what is behind this move? Our crypto baller BK is over at the Plasma to break it down. BK.
Yeah, hey, I would temper a bit of the enthusiasm or negativity. This is kind of normal volatility for it, but we're going to talk about that in a bit. Crypto carnage. Why are we seeing a sell-off, let's call it? Number one, regulatory uncertainty once again. So yesterday we had the North American Securities Association come out and do something called Operation Crypto Sweep, where they shut down a lot of really bad projects, and then they sent letters to a bunch of the exchanges just to gather information. This is exactly what we want regulators to doing out there, fixing the problems, shutting down bad projects, and saying to the exchanges, hey, we have these rules that we need to follow by. This is the next step into the institutionalization of this market. So while it's uncertain now, I actually view that as somewhat of a positive. Lack of institutional investment. This is our if we build it, they will come moment. We have a custody solution coming out of Nomura last week. ICE announced that they're going to have a cryptocurrency exchange. We have multiple different banks, Goldman Sachs, opening up a trading desk. We're all ready. We're just waiting for those institutions to come. Until we see some sign of that, you're going to see a little bit of weakness. And then finally, what I mentioned at the top, the usual volatility. This is kind of normal trading for Bitcoin cryptocurrencies. Extremely volatile asset class, makes you want to lose your lunch. I almost lost my lunch this morning, but you know what? This is the asset class that we're in. So now let's just take a look at it and see where we are with Bitcoin. Go to the next one. I wanted a 3-year chart, right? So we can see this big spike up that we have. But what are we doing here? We've had this little bump, and if I draw myself a trend line all the way back here, look at what we're doing. We are still in that 2 to 3 year uptrend. And right here at about 7,400, 7,485, we have bounced right off of that trend line. Then if you draw a couple more of these, let's see if I can clear that up a bit. If you draw this line here and this line here, what does that look like? That looks like a wedge. We're off the bottom there. So for me, risk-reward wise, not a bad time to get into Bitcoin.
Hey, Brian, it's Tim. How are you?
Tim.
Good job out there tonight.
Hey, thanks.
Question, give us some visibility into the entire cryptocurrency space, because most people can see and track what's going on in Bitcoin. There's been some concerns about Bitcoin versus Bitcoin Cash. How much is this a Bitcoin issue, or is this a bloodbath everywhere?
So Bitcoin's still the big dog out there, and everything is still correlated with Bitcoin. It's still the way that you get onboarded into this system. What is going to happen over the next couple days, or next couple weeks, actually, you're going to see other exchanges here in the U.S. start trading U.S. dollar pairs against other cryptocurrencies. So I would expect as that trading expands, you'll see less dominance of Bitcoin and correlation to everything else, and onboarding into other cryptocurrencies.
All right, thanks for that, BK. We want to move on in our crypto conversation. And one man intimately familiar with this sell-off is Asif Hirji, the president of Coinbase, the largest online crypto broker. It's also number 10 on the CNBC disruptor list. He joins us today from Las Vegas, where he is at a Credit Suisse private internet conference. Asif, great to have you back on the show.
Thanks, Melissa. Nice to be here.
We want to get to your announcement, but first we want to talk about this crypto sell-off. And what are you seeing amongst your client base right now in terms of trading activity? Is there still that sort of interest in crypto that we saw in the fourth quarter in terms of the trading volumes?
Yeah, I think that, look, the trading volumes, as we've talked about before, are highly correlated to where the asset prices are. When the asset prices are going up, there are more people trading crypto. When the asset prices are coming down, there's fewer people trading. But in terms of account opening and so on, we're still seeing very healthy volumes there. We're very happy with the way the business is going. As your previous guest said, it's a volatile asset class, and so I personally am not surprised about the volatility. And I do think the issues that he identified as to some of the causes are right, that the regulatory clarity being probably the biggest of the issues right now.
So you operate an exchange, you operate a trading platform. I'm wondering, in terms of the regulatory uncertainty that you face, do you feel like it has increased over the past 3 months or so, or decreased? Have you gotten contacted more by regulators recently?
Well, I think we have been contacted more, and we're doing much more outreach, and the clarity has not increased. I think the actions that have been taken to correct some of the fraudulent things that have been going on, and that's been very healthy for the industry, right? I think that clarity, though, is needed, and I don't think we're close to that, unfortunately. And so we're working very hard with many of the regulators, both here in the U.S. and abroad, as to what that constitutes. And you will know, we talked about before, we have a very robust framework we use for how we think about assets to list on our exchange. But with that, we can't apply that unless there's some clarity around, is it a security, is it a utility, et cetera. We feel that there are many projects out there which are utilities and should be able to be listed. And there's some that look like securities and need to be treated differently. But some clarity is what is the starting point for being able to show any progress on that front.
So would you say that was the #1 headwind in terms of adding assets to be traded on your platform? If you get clarity on that, the floodgates open for you?
Yeah, look, we would like to list as many assets as possible, right? I mean, it's in our interest too, it's in our traders' interest too. But we have taken the tack from the very beginning of being the easiest to use, most trusted. And part of being most trusted is being the most compliant. And so where there's uncertainty, we are not listing assets. And so that's why we list the 4 assets that we do list, because there is certainty around those. And as soon as there's more clarity around some of the other assets, we will list them, as long as they adhere to our framework. And so, again, we're working very closely with the regulators to try and get to a sensible regulation around this space. I mean, the analogy I use is, look, it's a bit like 5G. It's going to happen. And I think the U.S.'s question is, are we going to be at the forefront of that and shaping the way this space evolves, or are we going to let it evolve outside the U.S. and then be subject to whatever direction it takes there? I think it's far better for us to be at the leading edge of how it's going to evolve. And that would argue for sensible regulation here sooner rather than later.
Hey, Asif, it's Brian Kelly. So on that note, actually, one of my takeaways from Blockchain Week in New York last week was that all the adoption is happening in Asia, where we're getting a lot of development here in the U.S., but the consumer adoption is happening in Asia. Are you seeing that same phenomenon from your seat?
Yeah, I think that's right. So let's talk about what adoption means. There's 2 phases of any new technology. There's the invest phase and the utility phase. We're firmly in the invest phase of this technology, and it just happens to be investing. But the utility phase, where people can actually transact in it, they can earn in it, they can send it to each other, et cetera, much more of that's happening in Asia. And that's because they have more closed economies, they have more volatile currencies that they deal with. The value proposition is much tighter. And so if you look at our utility products, so we have the Coinbase wallet, which you can store and send crypto with, or Earn, which is a way to actually earn crypto. Those things have huge user bases, much of which is outside the U.S.
Asif, is there any iota of concern on your part that regulators will come down and decide that something is a security versus a commodity, and that would cause you to rethink what you have listed already on the platform?
Look, I guess that there's a chance that happens. I think it's a very low chance. I really do believe the amount of dislocation that would cause, not just to us, but the entire crypto space, is going to be enormous. And I think it would force a lot of projects and people, frankly, to move offshore. And like I said, it's a bit, to me, it is a bit like 5G in that it is going to happen. And the choice in front of our regulators is, do they want to be at the forefront of shaping how it's going to happen, or are they going to let others decide in the way in which it's going to evolve? And I think that would be dangerous if they let others decide.
All right, we do want to get to our Bitcoin alert. Asif, you've got a big announcement that you want to share first on CNBC. Some of it leaked earlier. That was the acquisition of Paradex. Some of it did not. So what is your announcement?
Yeah, so look, you and others have always been asking us when and why can you not list more assets? Why can you not let us trade more things? And I'm delighted to announce 2 things today that are going to significantly increase the amount of assets that people can trade on Coinbase. The first is the launch of Coinbase Pro, which is an active trading product. It's brand new. It is a set of institutional grade products and services, as well as direct market access. It's an evolution of our GDAX platform, which we launched 3 years ago and has been super successful. But GDAX, we're now basically splitting in 2. The Coinbase Institutional suite of products, which we announced last week, and Coinbase Pro now for the individual investor. And then secondly, we bought Paradex, which is the leading relay in the world. And this will allow you to trade literally hundreds and hundreds of tokens from your own wallet. And we're actually going to make that compliant with the U.S. rules. And so day one, it's going to be available for our international clients to trade all these tokens. And then as soon as we can, we are going to turn it on in the U.S., where our U.S. customers can also trade all these tokens that they want. And so, we're greatly increasing the number of things that you can trade. We're doing it in a compliant way. And we're just delighted that this will significantly enhance the proposition for our customers in terms of what they want to trade and how they want to trade it.
But again, that goes back to the regulatory unclarity. You've got the token trading available for international traders, but not available to the U.S. traders.
Yeah, so we're actually going to set this up where it's in the U.S. It's going to be a bulletin board. So it will be. It's not an exchange. It doesn't look and act like an exchange. It's not a matching engine. It's a bulletin board. And in that way, we think, just like bulletin boards work in equity markets, we will be able to offer these assets for people to be able to trade through a bulletin board mechanism in the U.S. And it'll be slightly different outside, but we will allow, we will get this to be compliant, and we will allow our customers to have access to it as soon as possible.
Hey, this is Brian Kelly again. So Paradex, as I understand it, is what we call a decentralized exchange, which essentially lets you to trade any type of token. So are you going to have particular tokens? Which ones will you start with? Will it be a basket?
Yeah, so it's not. Please let me correct you. It's not a decentralized exchange. It's not an exchange in that sense. It is a bulletin board. And that is a very, I'm being pedantic about it because the U.S. regulator views exchanges one way and bulletin boards another way. This is a bulletin board. And if it's a bulletin board, you can actually offer a much broader suite of products there, tokens, if you want, to trade. And so our hope would be that most of the tokens that are already trading on Paradex, we will be able to offer in the U.S. in a compliant manner.
All right, Asif, we're going to leave it there. It's always a pleasure having you on Fast.
Great.
Appreciate it. Asif Hirji of Coinbase. The announcement basically, right, going after the institutional investor, this is what investors have been waiting for, right? The flood of money to come into this space. Well,
again, I'm not sure how much of this has been deployed yet. I think there's a lot of people kicking the tires. There's a lot of big institutions. They can't do anything until they have custody laid out. Brian's talked about the different ingredients here. So I think guys like Coinbase are doing everything they can do to have the infrastructure and have the roads built. And I think, the lull in the trading here I can't speak to because, frankly, I think the people that are in the market right now are the ones that are doing all the activity. We haven't gotten a lot of new money.
Mm-hmm. I asked a question about securities versus commodities because they had that discussion at Blockchain Week about Ether.
Right.
And Ethereum's already listed on the Coinbase platform.
Ether, of all of those that are listed on Coinbase,
could be viewed.
Ether is probably the one that everybody has questions about.
Right. Is there any concern in your view that Ether could be considered a security?
Very little.
Okay, very little.
Very little, and here's why. Listen, we can go back to the history of Ethereum and the initial coin offering and how that was done, but the way that Ether functions today, it truly is the fuel for the decentralized internet. So it no longer acts as a security. It acts just like a commodity, just like oil does. So I would be surprised if Ether became a security.